In the quiet village of Nkata, nestled between towering mountains and dense forest, there lived a young girl named Adanna. Adanna stood at the edge of the village, looking out into the distance. The sun was setting, casting a golden light over the fields. Her heart felt heavy. It had been 2 weeks since her father, the greatest warrior in the village, was killed. No one knew who had done it, and the village was in shock. Her father, Obi, was a strong and brave man, loved by everyone. He had protected their people for many years, and now, he was gone. Adanna had cried for days after his death, but now her sadness had turned into something else, anger. She wanted to find out who had taken her father's life. But she was just a girl. No one would listen to her. A warrior's daughter should not meddle in matters of battle, the elders had said. But Adanna couldn't sit still any longer. She knew that there was something strange about her father's death. It didn't seem like an accident or the work of a wild animal. No, this was something darker. And she was determined to find out what it was. That night, Adanna sneaked out of her house. She wore her father's old cloak and carried a small knife he had once given her. The village was quiet, the only sound coming from the crickets chirping in the bushes. Her feet moved silently over the ground as she made her way to the forest. The forest was a place most people avoided after dark. It was said to be haunted by spirits. But Adanna wasn't afraid. She knew her father had often come here to think and to train. If there were any clues, they would be here. As she walked deeper into the forest, the trees seemed to close in around her. The air grew cooler, and the sounds of the village faded away. Suddenly, she heard a rustle behind her. She spun around, gripping her knife tightly, her heart pounding in her chest. A figure stepped out from behind the trees. It was tall, with broad shoulders and a hood covering its face. Adanna took a step back, her eyes wide with fear. "Who are you?" she demanded. The figure pulled back its hood, revealing the face of a young man, not much older than her. He had dark eyes and a serious expression. "I am Kanu," he said in a low voice. "I know who killed your father." Adanna's heart skipped a beat. "You do?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Tell me." Kanu shook his head. "It's not that simple. There are things you don't understand. Your father, he wasn't just a warrior. He was involved in something much bigger." Adanna's mind raced. What could Kanu mean? Her father had always been honest and brave. What secret could he have been hiding? But before she could ask, Kanu turned and started walking deeper into the forest. "Come with me," he said, not looking back. Adanna hesitated for a moment, but then followed him. She had no choice. This was the only lead she had, and she couldn't let it slip away. They walked in silence for what felt like hours, the trees growing thicker and the path more difficult to see. Finally, they reached a clearing, where a small fire was burning. Around the fire sat several other people, all wearing cloaks like Kanu. They looked up as Adanna and Kanu approached. One of them, an old woman with deep wrinkles and sharp eyes, stood up and pointed at Adanna. "She is the one," the woman said in a raspy voice. "She is the key." Adanna felt a chill run down her spine. "What do you mean?" she asked. The old woman stepped closer, her eyes gleaming in the firelight. "Your father was part of a secret group, a group that protected the village from an ancient evil. But that evil has returned, and it was responsible for his death." Adanna stared at the woman, her mind spinning. "Ancient evil? What are you talking about? My father never told me anything about this." The old woman nodded. "He wouldn't have. It was too dangerous. But now that he's gone, it falls to you. You are the warrior's daughter, and only you can stop what is coming." Adanna felt like the ground was shifting beneath her feet. She had thought she was just looking for her father's killer, but now it seemed like she was caught up in something far bigger and more dangerous than she could have imagined. Before she could respond, Kanu placed a hand on her shoulder. "You need to be strong, Adanna. If we don't stop this evil, the entire village could be destroyed." Adanna took a deep breath, her mind swirling with questions and fears. But one thing was clear, she couldn't turn back now. She had to find out the truth and save her village, just like her father would have wanted. In the days that followed, Adanna trained with Kanu and the others. They taught her how to fight, how to move silently through the forest, and how to defend herself against enemies she had never imagined. But the more she learned, the more she realized that the real danger wasn't just from warriors or animals, it was something far darker. One night, as they sat around the fire, Kanu told her the full story. "Many years ago, the village was plagued by a great darkness," he said. "An evil spirit that fed on fear and anger. Your father and the other warriors fought it and sealed it away, but it was never truly defeated. Now, it has found a way to return, and it is stronger than ever." Adanna listened, her heart pounding in her chest. "But why my father? Why did it kill him?" Kanu looked at her, his eyes full of sorrow. "Because he was the only one who could stop it. And now that responsibility falls to you." Adanna's hands trembled, but she clenched them into fists. She had to be strong. She had to finish what her father had started. The days passed quickly, and soon, the time came for Adanna to face the evil that had taken her father's life. With Kanu and the others by her side, she ventured into the heart of the forest, where the ancient spirit was said to dwell. The air was thick with tension as they approached a cave hidden deep among the trees. Inside, the darkness seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Adanna could feel the evil presence, waiting for them. As they entered the cave, the temperature dropped, and a low growl echoed through the darkness. Adanna's heart raced, but she kept moving forward, her father's spirit guiding her. Suddenly, a shadowy figure emerged from the darkness, its eyes glowing with a malevolent light. It was the spirit, the evil that had killed her father. Adanna raised her knife, her hand steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. "I am the warrior's daughter," she said, her voice strong. "And I will stop you." The spirit let out a terrible scream and lunged at her. But Adanna was ready. With a swift and powerful strike, she drove her knife into the heart of the darkness, banishing it once and for all. As the spirit faded away, the cave filled with light. Adanna collapsed to the ground, exhausted but victorious. She had done it. She had avenged her father and saved her village. When she returned to the village, the people cheered her name. She had proven herself as a warrior, just like her father. But Adanna knew that the real battle had been within herself, the battle to overcome fear, doubt, and grief. She was no longer just a warrior's daughter. She was a warrior in her own right. And from that day on, Adanna protected her village, just as her father had, with strength, courage, and a heart full of love for the people she cared about most. As the days turned into weeks, Adanna became a symbol of hope for the village. She wasn't just the daughter of a great warrior anymore, she was their protector. Though the dark spirit had been defeated, peace was never truly permanent in the village. There were whispers of new dangers, and some feared that evil forces still lurked beyond the village's borders. But Adanna stood tall, her father's spirit always with her. One day, while walking through the marketplace, Adanna noticed something strange. The people were quiet, whispering in hushed tones. She saw fear in their eyes as they glanced toward the forest. An elder named Neka approached her, her wrinkled hands trembling. "Adanna," Neka said, her voice shaking, "there have been sightings in the forest again. Strange shadows moving at night. We thought the evil was gone, but we may have been wrong." Adanna's heart tightened. She had defeated the ancient spirit, hadn't she? She had felt the darkness disappear, but now doubt crept into her mind. She knew she couldn't ignore this. The village was her responsibility now. That night, Adanna gathered her weapons and set out for the forest once again. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the trees. As she entered the thick woods, the familiar chill of fear settled over her. But she pushed it aside, reminding herself of the strength she had gained. She moved silently through the trees, her senses sharp. The deeper she went, the more she felt it, a presence watching her. The hairs on the back of her neck stood up, and she gripped her knife tightly. Suddenly, a figure appeared in front of her, stepping out from behind a tree. It wasn't Kanu or any of the others from the secret group. This figure was cloaked in darkness, its eyes glowing faintly, much like the spirit she had faced before. But this was different. This figure was human, or at least, it seemed that way. "Who are you?" Adanna demanded, raising her knife. Her voice was firm, but her heart raced. The figure didn't respond. Instead, it took a step closer, and Adanna could see the faint outline of a mask covering its face. It was not a spirit, but a man. He stood tall, his presence ominous. Without warning, he threw something at her feet, an object wrapped in cloth. Adanna hesitated, then knelt to unwrap it. Her breath caught in her throat. It was her father's pendant, the one he had worn every day of his life, the one that had been buried with him. "How?" Adanna whispered, her voice barely audible. The figure finally spoke, his voice cold and distant. "Your father's death was not as it seemed." Adanna stood, her mind spinning. "What do you mean?" "He was killed by the ancient spirit." The figure shook his head. "No. That's what they wanted you to believe. Your father was betrayed by someone within the village." The words hit Adanna like a punch to the chest. Betrayed? How could that be possible? Her father had been loved by everyone. Who would have done such a thing? The figure turned to leave, but Adanna lunged forward, grabbing his arm. "Wait. Who did this? Who killed my father?" The man looked back at her, his eyes hidden behind the mask. "The answers you seek are closer than you think. But be careful. Trust no one." And with that, he disappeared into the shadows, leaving Adanna standing alone in the forest, her mind racing with questions. The next morning, Adanna returned to the village, the pendant clutched tightly in her hand. She couldn't shake the figure's words from her mind. If her father had been betrayed, it meant someone in the village had a hand in his death. But who? And why? Adanna knew she had to be careful. If she started asking the wrong questions, the traitor might realize she was onto them. But she couldn't let this go. She owed it to her father to find out the truth. Over the next few days, Adanna kept her eyes and ears open. She listened to the villagers, watched their movements, and tried to see if anyone seemed off. It wasn't long before she noticed something strange. A man named Chima, one of the village council members, had been acting unusually nervous. He avoided Adanna whenever she was near and often spoke in whispers with a few other council members. Her instincts told her something wasn't right. One evening, Adanna followed Chima as he left the village and headed into the forest. She stayed hidden, moving silently through the trees, until they reached a clearing. There, to her shock, Chima met with the masked figure from before. Adanna's heart raced as she crouched behind the tree, listening intently. "We have a problem," Chima said, his voice low. "The girl is getting too close to the truth." The masked man nodded. "Then we'll have to deal with her, just like we dealt with her father." Adanna's blood turned cold. It was true. Chima had been part of the plot to kill her father. But what could they possibly gain from it? And why was this masked man involved? Adanna knew she couldn't confront them alone, not yet. She needed a plan. She had to find out exactly what they were after and why her father had been targeted. But one thing was clear, her father's death had been no accident, and the village was in far more danger than anyone realized. In the days that followed, Adanna worked in secret, gathering information and trying to piece together the mystery of her father's death. The more she learned, the more she realized that this was not just about power or greed. There was something deeper at play, something dark and dangerous that threatened not only her village but the entire land. As the pieces of the puzzle slowly fell into place, Adanna knew that she was facing a much bigger enemy than she had ever imagined. But she was her father's daughter, and she would not back down. With her heart full of courage and determination, Adanna prepared for the battle ahead. She would not rest until the truth was revealed and justice was served. But she also knew that the path she was about to walk was fraught with danger. She would need all the strength, wisdom, and bravery she could muster. The real fight was just beginning. Adanna spent the next few nights sleepless, her mind constantly turning over the things she had discovered. The betrayal ran deep, and the masked figure was somehow involved in a plan far more dangerous than she initially thought. She knew she couldn't do this alone. Kanu, the boy who had stood by her side during the battle with the spirit, was someone she could trust. She needed his help. Early one morning, she approached Kanu as he was sharpening his spear by the riverbank. "Kanu," she began, her voice low, "there's something I need to tell you." Kanu looked up, sensing the seriousness in her tone. "What's wrong?" Adanna took a deep breath and told him everything, the masked figure, Chima's betrayal, and the truth about her father's death. Kanu listened carefully, his eyes narrowing in anger and disbelief. "They betrayed your father," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "How could anyone do that?" Adanna clenched her fist. "I don't know, but they are planning something even worse. I've seen them meeting in secret. Whatever it is, it could destroy our village." Kanu stood, his grip tightening around his spear. "We have to stop them. But we can't do this alone." Adanna nodded. "I know. But we can't trust anyone. Not yet. We need to gather more proof, something that will expose them to the whole village." Together, Adanna and Kanu began to secretly watch Chima and the other council members. They were careful not to draw attention to themselves, always keeping their distance. It wasn't long before they discovered a hidden meeting place deep in the forest, a cave where Chima and the masked figure often met at night. One evening, they followed Chima to the cave. Adanna and Kanu crouched behind some rocks, listening to the voices inside. "The time is almost here," the masked figure said. "Soon, we will have the power we need to take control of the village, and beyond." Chima sounded nervous. "But what about Adanna? She's getting too close. She's not like her father, she's smarter, and she's stronger." The masked man chuckled. "Leave Adanna to me. I have ways of dealing with her." Adanna felt a shiver run down her spine. She had expected danger, but the threat now felt more real than ever. They needed to act fast. As they made their way back to the village, Kanu spoke up, his voice tense. "Adanna, we can't wait any longer. Whatever they are planning, it's happening soon. We need to warn the village." Adanna stopped, thinking carefully. "We can't just warn them. Chima has too much influence. If we don't have solid proof, no one will believe us. We need to expose them at the right time, when they least expect it." Kanu nodded, though his brow was furrowed with worry. "But how do we get proof? We can't just walk into their meetings." Adanna thought for a moment, then a plan began to form in her mind. "We'll set a trap. We'll make them reveal their plans in front of everyone." The next day, Adanna and Kanu put their plan into motion. They secretly told a few trusted villagers, those who had been loyal to her father, about what they had discovered. Together, they set up a public gathering under the guise of a village celebration. Chima and the other council members, unaware of Adanna's plan, attended as usual, thinking it was a harmless event. As the celebration continued, Adanna waited for the right moment. She saw Chima talking with the other council members and the masked figure lurking at the edge of the crowd. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she forced herself to stay calm. Suddenly, Kanu, who had been positioned near the stage, gave her the signal. It was time. Adanna stepped forward, raising her voice so that everyone could hear. People of the village, there is something you need to know, a secret that has been kept from you for far too long. The crowd quieted, all eyes turning to Adanna. Chima looked uneasy, shifting in his seat, while the masked figure stood frozen in the shadows. My father, Adanna continued, her voice strong, did not die as a hero fighting the ancient spirit. He was betrayed by someone in this village. Gasps of shock rippled through the crowd, and murmurs of confusion spread. Chima's face grew pale. Adanna took a deep breath and turned to him. Chima, you and your allies are the ones responsible for my father's death, aren't you? Chima jumped to his feet, his voice shaking with fear and anger. That's a lie. You have no proof. But Adanna was ready. She signaled to Kanu, who had been waiting in the wings. He stepped forward, holding a small stone tablet they had discovered in the cave, the one that contained the details of Chima's plot, including the names of everyone involved. This, Kanu said, lifting the tablet high for everyone to see, is the proof. It lists everything, how they plotted against Adanna's father, how they planned to take over the village, and the dark forces they've been working with. The crowd erupted in outrage. Chima tried to flee, but the villagers grabbed him before he could escape. The masked figure, however, was nowhere to be found. He had disappeared into the night. With Chima and his co-conspirators captured, the village elders were quick to act. Justice was swift, and the traitors were exiled from the village forever. But even as peace returned, Adanna knew that the masked figure was still out there, watching, waiting. The battle was not over. There were more dangers ahead, and she would need all her strength and courage to face them. But she was ready. She was her father's daughter, and she would protect her village, no matter the cost. The days following Chima's exile were filled with both relief and uncertainty. The village was safe for now, but the masked figure's escape left an unease that gnawed at Adanna's heart. She couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a larger, darker plan. The villagers, though grateful, looked to her more than ever for guidance. Adanna had become a leader, but she knew that leadership came with heavy responsibilities. Late one evening, while sitting outside her hut, gazing at the stars, Adanna heard footsteps approaching. It was Kanu, his face etched with concern. Adanna, he began, sitting beside her, I've been thinking. That masked figure. He's still out there. We don't know who he is or what he's planning next. We stopped Chima, but we didn't stop him. Adanna nodded, her eyes fixed on the sky. I know, Kanu. I feel it too. There's something bigger happening. And it's not just about this village. I can sense it. Kanu looked at her, his brow furrowed. What do you mean? She took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. My father used to tell me stories about the old kingdoms. About ancient powers that existed long before our time. Powers that were forgotten or hidden. I think the masked figure is after something like that. Something dangerous. Kanu's eyes widened. Do you really think it's that serious? Adanna turned to face him, her expression grave. Yes. And if we don't find out what he's after, he could come back with even more strength. The weight of her words hung in the air, and Kanu knew she was right. But what could they do? They had no idea where the masked figure had gone or what his true intentions were. The next morning, Adanna and Kanu decided to seek the wisdom of the village's oldest elder, Mama Udo. She had lived through many battles and had knowledge of the ancient ways. If anyone knew about the masked figure and the powers he sought, it would be her. Mama Udo's hut was at the edge of the village, surrounded by tall trees that seemed to whisper secrets as the wind blew through them. Adanna and Kanu approached the small hut, knocking lightly on the wooden door. The old woman's voice called out, inviting them inside. Adanna, Kanu, Mama Udo said, her eyes twinkling with the wisdom of many years. I knew you would come. Adanna and Kanu exchanged surprised glances as they sat before the elder. You knew we were coming? Adanna asked. Mama Udo nodded slowly. The winds have been speaking. The earth, the trees, they all tell me things. Dark times are ahead, child. Darker than you've ever known. Adanna leaned forward, her voice urgent. Mama Udo, there is a masked figure. He escaped after Chima was exiled. I believe he's after something ancient, something powerful. Do you know what it could be? The elder's eyes darkened, and she sighed deeply. The masked figure. He seeks the Eye of Omen. It is an ancient artifact, hidden for generations. It holds the power to control the elements, to bend the forces of nature to one's will. Kanu's face turned pale. Control the elements. That kind of power could destroy everything. Mama Udo nodded gravely. Indeed. And if it falls into the wrong hands, it could bring chaos beyond imagination. Adanna's heart pounded. This was worse than she had expected. The Eye of Omen was more than just a tool of power. It could reshape the entire land, turn friends into enemies, and bring destruction like nothing they had ever seen. But why would you want that kind of power? Adanna asked, her voice barely a whisper. Mama Udo closed her eyes, as if recalling an ancient memory. Many years ago, the Eye was created by a group of powerful sorcerers who believed they could control the world. But the power consumed them. They were destroyed by their own creation, and the Eye was hidden away, buried deep in the mountains. Only a few know its location. But the masked figure, he is one of them. Adanna felt a chill run down her spine. Then we have to stop him. We have to find the Eye before he does. Mama Udo opened her eyes, her gaze steady. It will not be easy, child. The journey is perilous, and the Eye is protected by ancient guardians. But you are strong, and you have the spirit of your father within you. You must go, for if the masked figure claims the Eye, there will be no stopping him. Adanna nodded, determination rising within her. She had no choice. The safety of her village, and perhaps the entire land, rested on her shoulders. She turned to Kanu, who was already preparing himself mentally for the journey ahead. We'll do it, she said, her voice firm. We'll find the Eye of Omen, and we'll stop him. Mama Udo smiled faintly. The path will be dangerous. But I believe in you, Adanna. You are your father's daughter, and you have a destiny to fulfill. That night, Adanna and Kanu prepared for the journey ahead. They knew the road would be long and filled with danger, but they had no choice. The masked figure was out there, searching for the Eye of Omen, and they had to stop him before it was too late. As they left the village at dawn, the first light of the sun casting a golden glow over the trees, Adanna couldn't help but feel a sense of purpose. This was her fight, her destiny. And she would not let fear stop her. The journey to the mountains would test everything they had, strength, courage, and heart. But together, Adanna and Kanu knew they could face whatever lay ahead. And somewhere, in the shadows, the masked figure waited, watching, knowing that the final battle was drawing near. As Adanna and Kanu journeyed deeper into the mountains, the landscape became harsher. The winds grew colder, the paths narrower, and the shadows longer. They knew the masked figure was ahead of them, searching relentlessly for the Eye of Omen. After days of climbing and facing perilous obstacles, they reached the entrance of an ancient cave, hidden beneath a crumbling cliff. Mama Udo had warned them about the guardians of the eye, and they could feel a strange energy in the air as they stepped inside. The cave was vast, with walls covered in ancient carvings. At the far end, glowing faintly, was a pedestal. Upon it sat the Eye of Omen, an orb of swirling colors, pulsating with power. But they weren't alone. The masked figure stood before the pedestal, his hand reaching toward the eye. His voice echoed through the cave. Finally. With this power, I will control the elements, and no one will stand in my way. Adanna stepped forward, her voice steady but filled with emotion. You won't take it. I won't let you destroy everything my father protected. The masked figure turned slowly, his eyes glinting beneath the mask. Your father was a fool, Adanna. He didn't understand true power. But you could join me. Together, we could reshape this world. Kanu stepped beside her, gripping his spear tightly. We'll never join you. The masked figure laughed, a dark, twisted sound. Then you will fall. With a flick of his hand, the cave erupted in chaos. Rocks tumbled, the wind howled, and the ground beneath them shook. Adanna and Kanu dodged the debris, their hearts racing. But as the masked figure reached for the eye, something unexpected happened. The cave's guardians, ethereal beings of light and shadow, emerged from the walls. Their presence was overwhelming, and even the masked figure seemed momentarily stunned. Adanna's mind raced. She remembered what Mama Udo had said, the eye was not just a weapon, but a force that demanded balance. It would only submit to one who sought to protect, not to conquer. As the masked figure tried to claim the eye, the guardians surrounded him, their forms flickering with energy. He fought them, using dark magic, but it was clear he was losing control. Adanna saw her chance. She stepped forward, her heart steady, and reached out her hand. I don't want the power to rule. I want to protect my village. My family. The people I love. The eye began to glow brighter, and the guardians shifted their attention to her. The swirling colors within the orb calmed, and as she touched it, the chaos in the cave stopped. The masked figure screamed in rage as the power he sought slipped away. The guardians enveloped him, and with a final burst of light, he was gone, vanished into the very darkness he had tried to control. Adanna held the Eye of Omen, its light soft and warm. She knew that this power wasn't hers to keep. With a deep breath, she placed it back on the pedestal, where it belonged. The cave quieted, and the guardians faded into the walls, their task complete. Kanu approached her, his face filled with awe and relief. You did it, Adanna. You saved us all. Adanna smiled softly, but there was sadness in her eyes. It wasn't just me. My father, Mama Udo, we all played a part. And now, the village is safe. They returned to the village as heroes, but Adanna didn't feel like one. She had learned that true strength came not from power, but from the courage to protect what mattered most. The Eye of Omen would remain hidden, and its secret safe. And though the masked figure was gone, Adanna knew the world would always have its share of darkness. But as long as there were people willing to stand up and fight for what was right, there would also be hope. Together with Kanu, Adanna returned to her peaceful life, knowing that, no matter what came next, she would be ready. The village was her home, and she would protect it always.